All right, guys, this lesson is on transformations. When you see the word transformation, you see the word transform in it. We know that transform means to change. Okay, so all of these, these three different transformations are all different ways that something on the coordinate plane is going to change. So the first thing we're going to look at is a translation, okay, or also known as slide, okay, when something slides on the coordinate plane. That's when every point is moved the same distance in the same direction, okay, just like moving this piece of paper. I'm going to move, so all four of these corners, if I move it up, all four corners moved up. Slide. Okay? So let's look on the inside. It helps me remember, for translation, that there's a word that I can kind of pull out of it. This SL reminds me that it's slide. Okay? Now, in a translation, if the point or figure is going to be moved to the right, we're going to add to the x value. And if it's moved up, we're going to add to the y value. Because remember, x goes left and right on the coordinate plane, and y goes up or down. If it's moved left, then I'm going to subtract. And if I'm going left, that means I'm going to subtract from the x value. And if it's moved down, I'm going to subtract from the y value, because the y-axis goes up and down. So example 1 for point A. If point A is 3, 4, it's translated, so slide, there's that SL. We're going to slide it 4 units to the right and 3 units down. What are the coordinates of this A with an apostrophe? It's called A prime. A prime. Because A, it's not A anymore, it's now moved. It's called A prime. All right, well, point A was at 3, 4. I'm sliding it 4 units to the right. Well, if it's going to the right, that means I'm going to add, and left and right means the x. So I'm going to add 4 to the x value. And then 3 units down, well, down means subtract, and up or down goes to the y value, so going down 3. So A prime has a new coordinate. 3 plus 4 is 7, and 4 minus 3 is 1. So that's the coordinate of A prime. Example 4, we have a triangle ABC with these points, and it's going to translate. There's that SL that tells me it's sliding 2 units to the left and 3 units up. So let's write our coordinates again. A is 1, 3, negative 2, negative 2, 3, negative 1. All right, and what am I doing to each? It's going 2 units to the left. Well, left means to subtract, and it also means I'm looking at the x. So I'm subtracting 2 from all of the x values. And 3 units up means I'm going to add 3 to the y value. So I have A prime, 1 minus 2, or keep change, change. 1 plus negative 2 is negative 1. 3 plus 3 more is 6. So A prime is at -1, 6. Okay, -2, keep change, plus -2. B prime is at -4. -2 plus 3 is 1. And C prime, 3 minus 2 is 1. -1 plus 3 is 2. Those are the new coordinates after I slid it 2 units left and 3 units up. And we'll save the one at the bottom for the end. So reflecting. Okay, we know that reflecting also means to flip. That's when every point's reflected across the line of reflection. Each point will be the same distance from the line. Let's rewrite reflection. And now I'm going to use that FL and throw in an IP to remember that reflect means to flip. If the point or figure is reflected across the x-axis, we're going to keep the x value the same. Okay, if it's x-axis, keep the x the same and change the y value to the opposite. All right, and then if the point's reflected across the y-axis, we're going to keep the y value the same and change the x value to its opposite. So point B is at -4, 2. It's reflected across the x-axis, so that means we're going to keep x the same. X is -4, leave it as -4. It's going across that x-axis. Okay, and then y is going to be changed to its opposite. Well, the opposite of 2 is -2. All right, now we're looking at B prime, so we're starting here, and we're reflecting this point across the y-axis. So B prime prime, now x doesn't stay the same, but y does because it's going across that y-axis. So y stays -2, and x changes to its opposite. The opposite of -4 is +4. And in example 5, okay, we're going to reflect triangle ABC across the y-axis. So that means all of the y values are going to stay the same. So 1, 3, that 3 stays the same. In point B, that -2 stays the same. And in C, the -1 stays the same. All of the y stayed the same because it went across the y-axis. And now x is going to change to the opposite. The opposite of 1 is -1. The opposite of -2 is +2. And the opposite of 3 is -3. That is my reflection across the y-axis. All right, and then the last one. Rotations also mean to turn. That's also known as turn. Where every point turns around a fixed center point called the center of rotation. Okay. This one's a little bit trickier. Here's my rotation, and I'm going to make the word turn out of it to remember it. All right, so rotations around the origin. So we're saying that that origin is the center of reflection. If you turn 90 degrees, we're going to change our XY pair. It's going to become, the Y value is going to become the X value. And the Y value is the negative of whatever X was. It'll make more sense when you see numbers. For 180 degree rotation, we're going to change both of the x's and y's to make it just the opposite. So it'll be negative x and negative y, or just the opposite. If it was negative, you'd make it positive, whatever the opposite was. And then for 270 degrees, we're going to take the y value and put it in the x spot, but make it the opposite. And then we're going to put the x in the y value spot. All right, so let's see. Let's see it with numbers. So if point C is at -6, -1, okay, and it's rotated 90 degrees. Well, if it's rotated 90 degrees, that means I'm going to put the y in the x spot. Well, the y is -1, so I'm going to put that in the x spot. And then I'm going to put whatever the x value was, but I'm going to put the opposite. Okay, so the opposite of -6 is +6. And that's the new coordinate if you rotated that point 90 degrees. C is rotated 180 degrees, so -6, -1. But if I go 180, it's the opposite of x and the opposite of y. So the opposite of -6 is 6, and the opposite of -1 is 1. And then 270, -6, -1. Okay, for 270, I'm going to put the y in the x spot and make it the opposite. So y is -1, but it's the opposite, so I'm going to put a +1. And then the x just goes into the y spot, -6. Okay, so example 6. We have triangle ABC has points. We're going to rotate it 270 degrees. Okay, so for 270, remember up here, we're going to put the y in the x spot, make it the opposite. So A, the y was 3. I'm going to put it in the x spot and make it the opposite, so -3. The y is -2. I'm going to put it at the x spot and make it a positive. And then the y is -1. I'm going to put it in the x spot and make it a positive. And then the x's, or for that second, or the y coordinate, I'm just going to put whatever the x was in the y spot. So the x was a 1, put it in the y spot. The x was a -2, put it in the y spot. And the x was a 3, put it in the y spot. We're actually going to save this multiple transformations for tomorrow, so don't worry about that now. Okay, your left-hand page. Look at the top. Pay attention, it gets folded so that the back is blank. Okay, look at where it says rotating. You're only going to do number 4 on the rotating for this foldable. Translating, we're going to do all 4. And reflecting, you're going to do all 4. I'm going to do one translating with you. Okay? So it says that we're going to move the shape 4 units to the right and 1 unit down. Okay? So we're going to add 4 to the x value, plus 4 to the x, and we're going to 1 unit down, subtract 1 from the y. Okay? So -5 plus 4 is -1. So for 1a, that's my coordinate, is -1. And then y, 5 minus 1 is 4. That's my first point. Okay, just keep doing that for the same. 0 plus 4 is 4. 9 minus 1 is 8. And then -10 plus 4 is 6. And 10 minus 1 is 9. And then you're going to graph those points. Okay, that should have been -6, 9, and you graphed your points. Okay, you're going to do that for the rest of those. That 1G says graph. And then same with reflect. Okay, for this first one, if you're going across the x-axis, we're going to keep x and change y to the opposite. The code word for this lesson is water bottle. Go ahead and email me if you have any questions. Complete all of the reflection and translation, and just do number 4 on the rotations.